I'd like to take and go over the various models of dies that we offer here. And we're going to start with our UDK series, which have a lineup here of various models. And you'll note that we carry the full line of the circular mil-spec D-type connectors. And they're generally always in stock. And a few things to note is the basic design of them is all the same. They all are pulled with a D-type stud to orient the punch with the base. Those are precision cut with our wire EDM, and they use a D-type stud to take and pull the dice. And if we start at our largest model here, you notice this is based off a 1-inch D-size stud. It does require a CYL 301 puller. And this particular die set I've done for some oil field equipment, and you can punch up to 7 gauge with this combination. Cylinders got up to 26 tons of force, thus the larger stud. And our centers are hardened S7 tool steel, so they'll stand up to that kind of operation. The next size down, we drop down to a 3/4 D stud, and note that it comes with a nut and a thrust bearing on it. You can take and pull these dies manually with a wrench. You'll see later in a demonstration video how that's done. We highly recommend that you do take and use a hydraulic pulling method whenever it's available. And you use the same stud, and all you have to do, and I'll do this in our 201 cylinder, or you can do this in a quick draw or a Gator or a Milwaukee puller. And you basically just thread this into your industry standard 3/4 by 16 thread pulling cylinder, and then you have your nut here on this end that you basically remove. And then if you were to pick the die set, what you're going to do is take and slide that base over this stud. You'll put this through the panel, and then you'll take and assemble a punch on it, and then you just take and thread on your stud or your nut, and then you're ready to take and pull the opening. So you would just connect this up to your hydraulic power source, and then as it operates, it's going to take and pull the cup in, or the punch into the cup. And at that point, you'll notice we have a little clearance on that, so at that point it pops through and you can just pull the whole assembly out of the die set. This virtually works the same for the M series, which is the 1/2-inch draw stud, and the UD series, which was our first series, which is a 3/8 stud. So the concept's the same. One note, we do have a CYL 205A, which is a combination cylinder. So you get the 201 standard, industry standard pulling socket on that side. But later on, if you have some light duty STD applications, it's also a push cylinder that can be used on the STD series die sets also. Then we're going to talk a little bit about our balance drive system. And the thing that's unique about the balance drive system is we're able to take and parallel 2 cylinders. And basically, this being the industry standard 14-pole switch by ABB, the FT14. And the way you operate that is you can use either 2 205A cylinders or 2 of the 201 cylinders, and you'll take and place the studs in the cylinder, the base over the cylinder, and then of course the punch is going to take and be mounted up like this, and then you operate it as you would the standard balance drive system, which you should check our balance drive video, which explains how to operate that particular system. And then it virtually works the same way up here on our SGD 5470736. If it rings a bell, that's the Schweitzer SCL 751 devices, and yeah, it works exactly the same. You're going to take and assemble it with your base plate against the cylinder, and then you're going to put the bolts in through the punch portion of it and tighten it up, and then they'll have two CYL 200Ds on here, and then you operate that with the balance drive system, and we'll cut this open. The next series is our regular SDD series. And you notice it only has 2 volts, which makes life really easy. You just use one CYL 200D cylinder and you can operate it. And I believe this is our FT1, which is your 10-pole ABB flexi test switch. On the other end of the scale, we have the MD series dice sets, and they can come with either 1/4-inch pole bolts in them or the 3/8 pole bolts in them. And it does require a pulling adapter, this MD puller, and you'll notice a couple of collars comes with this. If you're going to use a quick draw or hydraulic cylinder, you're going to take and use a shorter coupling, and this will screw into the 201, and that'll be your spacer, so it can take and pull like this. If you are going to take and pull it by hand, use this longer adapter, and then what you're going to do, it's very simple, is you're going to take your die set and have your pre-drilled holes, goes through the panel, goes into the MD puller, and is threaded in to the puller. These don't have to be tight, but you should take and run them till they bottom out. We do have an interim model with 1/2-inch pole bolts and a CYL 150 B cylinder, and it's kind of makes the bridge between the SDDs and the DDs. And once again, they all work exactly the same way. You set up that assembly, take your 2 holes in your panel, put the base on the other side of the panel, take and thread in your CYL 150 cylinder, and then you can take and pull that. And there's one other thing that's really important, is the CYL 150 is drilled and tapped for the DDH series, but it also is drilled and tapped for the 1 3/4 inch spacing on the DD devices. Some of the DDs get bigger, and the standard DD puller, which you'll see next, sometimes really not up to the tonnage needed to take and use it. So this is a handy cylinder if you have a DDH, or if you're having, any issues pulling your regular DD series die set with the wider hole spacing, then it's a good idea to take a serious look at the 150s. And then we'll move right on over to the pullers for the DD series. And as you can see, there's multiple pulling locations in here for this, and the outside one's that 1 3/4 inch, which is going to match up with the CYL 150. So you got 2 devices that can pull the wider hole spacing, and then the narrower spacing you take in, and it's for the I believe our 1-inch spacing. And the pullers, you can get them in 2 styles. They're virtually the same, only one puller comes with a thrust bearing and a nut, and the other puller we sell without that. If you want to just thread that into your industry standard pulling cylinder like the CYL 201, or into a Gator or Quick Draw or even a Milwaukee, and then you can take and use that as your pulling device. But once again, the actual operation of the die set works exactly the same. And put that, get your 2 starter holes in your panel, put this on the other side of the panel, line up your holes in the puller. Once again, lock these down. They don't have to be tight, they have to be bottomed. And then you can take and operate with a wrench, or you can take and pull it hydraulic. One thing to note is draw studs in all these series die sets are considered consumable. So if you bend these, you can get them replaced. Same way with the UDK series, all of these studs are considered consumables, and they are actually designed, especially in the UD series, to fail before you exceed the loads on the die. It's very, very rare that you can damage these die sets. And if you do take and have one fail, it usually is going to take and break the stud right here. It's saving your investment in this die set. Please do not use impact drivers on any of the nut-driven ones. They just really aren't designed to take and transmit that rotational torque and the linear torque without doing some damage to the draw stud. So these are done by hand with the wrench. We recommend that you always pull hydraulic. And one of our last series of die sets, we only have 2 examples here, but we can build these, I think, Frank, up to 6.5 inches we've done before. We've done some very big ones. We've done some very tiny ones. Your limitation on your small size is we don't want to really see you try to pull anything less than a 1/4 inch draw stud, and then you're going to be the size of that die, you're going to really be into aluminum mostly, or some very thin steel. We do have a heavy duty series line of this with a 1 inch full stud diameter, which is not the industry standard anymore. Then you're going to have to swing over, and it's our heavy duty series. You're going to have to buy our 301 cylinder to pull that particular die set. But we can take and hack 10 gauge mild steel in some pretty good sized dies. You just got to have the horsepower to take and do it. And once again, most of these will ship with a thrust bearing and a bolt, so you can take and pull them by hand. But however, we have these industry standard studs here, and this is 3/4 16, which you can, take and thread into one of our 201s or a gator or a quick draw, and draw most all of these with the 3/4 16.